Welcome to the Marion County Council for Children and the Children's Assessment Center. We're a nonprofit that is a funded partner with UWSM Southwest Michigan. We're really excited to have you here today to take a tour and learn a little bit more about our organization and what we do. What we do here is we do investigative interviews and provide therapy to abused children in the community. Majority of the kids we see here are seen here for sexual abuse, for allegations and concerns for their safety. We do see children for severe physical abuse and witness to violence. And what happens when kids are referred here is that they come to our organization so that we can have a team investigation to determine if anything has happened to the child. We take referrals through law enforcement and child protective services. So if there's a concern for a child's safety and someone calls in a referral to CPS or calls law enforcement, they'll contact us and set up a time to set up what we call a forensic interview. And that's an investigative interview and kind of a truth, fact-finding investigation that we bring everybody that's involved in the investigation here so that we can conduct the interview. The room that we're in now is what we call our family debrief room. This is where we meet with caregivers prior to the forensic interview and also following the forensic interview. This room is used to get information from the parents. They'll meet initially with our forensic interviewer, and she tries to get information about the situation, what the parents know about what's going on, what the allegations are. This is also a good time to find out how supported the child will be in the home. Do the parents believe the child? And then we get some background information about who lives in the home, names of people that the child might be in contact with. So when we conduct the interview, those that are involved in watching in our observation room, which we'll see in a minute, we'll have law enforcement here, someone from Child Protective Services, someone from the prosecutor's office, and then often a couple people from our staff, whether it be one of our therapists and our family advocates. And then as possibility that we will have one of our SANE nurses here, which are our sexual assault nurse examiners. If there's going to be a referral for a medical exam, or we think there might be, sometimes the nurses will be able to sit in. So after the interview is done, we bring the parents back in here, and the team is able to meet with them and talk about what the child said, if there was a disclosure, and any next steps. So parents know what's going to happen next. They're going to know what law enforcement is doing. They're going to know what Child Protective Services is doing, and it hopefully can get all of their questions answered. And it's also an opportunity for them to meet with our family advocate and kind of debrief a little bit and talk through anything that they've heard. Because it's a lot of information coming at a parent. If they've heard some horrible information about what's happened to their child, it gives them the opportunity to meet with one of our advocates or even one of our therapists for some crisis counseling. So this is our observation room. This is where the team sits when we conduct a forensic interview. As you can see, there are 3 different windows on this side. It's a mirror on the other side. So the team sits back here and they wear headphones, which we have, and they each have individual devices so that they can hear what's going on. The interviewer wears this earpiece, and this is the microphone for the team. So they're able to talk to the interviewer, ask questions. The interviewer follows a pretty strict protocol that's set by the state of Michigan in terms of how an interview is conducted. So there's a lot of typical questions, but then as the interview progresses, and obviously each interview is different, the team has the opportunity to make sure that they have all their questions answered. So they will oftentimes ask the interviewer for more clarifying questions on location or a lot of different things. So the idea is that we conduct these interviews and that it was only done one time. We have a lot of kids that come here. We have caregivers that come here that are learning how to process this and how to understand what happened to their child, what to expect from an abused child behaviorally, and how to work with that. And then we also will see siblings. If a lot of times there's kids in the home that weren't abused, but maybe were witness to the abuse or have some feelings of guilt, like they should have prevented something. So we do see siblings as well. And fortunately, with our funding and the support of United Way, all these services are free to the family. So we can see kids for a few sessions with body safety, or we have some kids that come here for a year, 2 years on a weekly basis, and we don't have to cap it, we don't have to deal with insurance. So United Way funding's been really critical in terms of us being able to keep those services free to the families. So when we moved into this building, it was 2002, 2003, and we were seeing about 67 to 70 kids a year. And as I mentioned before, we're up to about 500 a year now. So in 2014, we started a capital campaign to do an expansion, which we did complete, moved back in 2015, and what that did was more than double the size of our building. We went from 1 therapy room to 3, and one of the really critical components that we added is a medical exam room. Oftentimes with sexual assault with children that there is a requirement for a medical exam. So part of the expansion, we added a medical exam room for the non-acute cases. So if it's a non-emergent case and a child discloses, we can have them come back here for clinic hours for their medical exam. And we have our SANE nurses that will come on site here and conduct the medical exam. And it's convenient for not only the team, but also obviously more critically is the child, that they can come back to a place that's child friendly, that they know the people at the front desk already, they know the location. It's not having to go through the hospital or through the emergency room. And in terms of the investigation and the treatment of the child, we can now meet on site here with the nurses and let them know what the child disclosed that's critical to the medical component, so that the nurse doesn't have to re-ask questions that the child already talked about. So we can let them know what's happened to the child so that they can conduct the medical exam without too much additional information for the child. So these rooms are our forensic interviewing rooms, which is where we bring the children to be interviewed. We keep them pretty simple. There's not a lot of decor or different things on there. We don't want a lot of distractions for them. So we don't have toys or anything. The most exciting thing we have in there is Play-Doh for the littler kids. And to keep their hands busy sometimes is good for talking. But we want to make sure that we can have them focused on there. And like I said, our little kids room is kids 10 and under, and you can take a look and see that the furniture is a little bit smaller, a little more comfortable for the kids. And then we have the teen room, which is for kids 11, those 11, 12, 13-year-olds, they let them select which room they want to go into. But they're both set up the same. They both have the microphones, they have the video cameras. They're both set up with the one-way mirrors so that it's a mirror on one side. And so in terms of the number of interviews we have right now, we're utilizing 3 different interviewers. We have a full-time interviewer who is newer, and so she's in the training process. And then we have 2 veteran seasoned interviewers that one's part-time and one comes in as a consultant. So we really have a lot of years of experience and a lot of expertise. Our more seasoned interviewers are used to do interviews around the state, and they're used to do expert witness testimony in court because of their background and experience. So we're really fortunate in Berrien County to have some really great experience in terms of the number of interviews that they've done. So this side of the building is is our therapy wing, is what we call it. We try to keep things a little bit separated. So this is where our therapy clients will come and meet with our therapists. Part of our expansion, we went from 1 therapy room to 3, which was really critical in being able to see, as I mentioned before, we see family members. Some families, we have several siblings that we see, so they either come different days or they'd be here for 3 hours at a time. This allows us to see them all at the same time so they can come here. We have 2 full-time therapists and we have a master's intern therapist, so we can actually see 3 family members at the same time, and now we have the space for that. Okay, so the last room I'll show you is our conference room and our mock courtroom. And this is where we do a lot of different meetings and activities go on here. A lot of our trainings can occur here. And one of the really exciting things that we have with the expansion is a mock courtroom. We do a lot of court prep with kids. Both the therapists will do court prep, and then our prosecutors will do court prep with them. And so those kids that have to testify, obviously it's really nerve-wracking, intense time for them. So we want to make it as easy as possible. So part of the court prep is being able to go to the courtroom and be able to see it. And prior to having this, we would take them down to the Berrien County Courthouse if there was availability, and they'd get to spend a little bit of time in the courtroom. This allows them to see it every day if they want, if they're here for therapy, or every time they're here for therapy, the therapist can bring them in here and they can see where the judge is going to sit, where they're going to have to sit. We actually rearrange the tables so it's set up like that there's tables where the prosecution and defense side, so they have a better idea once they come to the courtroom what it's going to look like, and then the prosecutor can actually come in and ask them some questions that they might ask them during the actual trial. So it's been a great benefit. Mark McCrone, a local woodworker who has been a huge supporter of us, built this for us, and it actually replicated it off of one of the Berrien County Courthouse rooms. United Way funding for us is critical. We've been United Way funded partners for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been here, and I've been here 9 or 10 years. And it's critical in terms of when we were initially starting up to have some support to be able to get the organization going. Now A lot of our funding that we get is state and federal funding, which is really strictly restricted in terms of how we can use it. United Way funding, it allows us to be more flexible in terms of covering all of our services. Like some of our federal funding doesn't allow us to pay for any prevention education and different things like that. But like you had mentioned, one of the key things is that our federal fund, which is probably 60% of what we bring in, requires a 20% match to get any funding for them. So we use United Way funding as that match. So that's money that we wouldn't be able to have if we weren't able to provide that 20% match. So in terms of our funding, it's pretty distributed, but a lot of it is state and federal funding. So that's, it's pretty consistent right now, but you never know going forward. So to have the consistency of United Way funding and to guarantee that that money's coming in has been really beneficial for us to continue services, but obviously we've been able to expand services, and now we're meeting the needs of more kids and families. That's the building, and we're glad that you could see our expanded building and get a tour and learn a little bit more about what we're doing here. We're really proud of the space, and we're really proud of what we're doing to help kids in the community. And we really want to thank United Way for their continued support year after year and for allowing us to do these type of tours. We like getting information out there to the community to let them know of the services that are available to families and children in the area.
Good afternoon and welcome to Centered on Wellness. I'm glad that you're all here today. I'm going to take you for a tour of our office here in Benton Harbor. It is our administrative office as well as the counseling office. We have offices in Stevensville, Niles, Sawyer, Coloma, South Haven, St. Joe, and then here in Benton Harbor. In the over 40 years that we've been open, we've never turned anybody away for any reason, and especially because of their ability to or not be able to pay. So being a United Way agency, having great angels in the community, and maybe a business plan that has worked for the last 40 years, we have clients that come here every day that maybe can't pay for their counseling, but are getting life-changing services because of what we offer here. And that's probably, expressed in our success stories, but until you see the way someone walked in here on their first appointment, like they've just been beaten up and just look so much older than their age, and then by the end of counseling, they're saying hello, they're smiling, they're happy. We do a lot of good work here. Even if you can't afford it, you can still get some great counseling. So when we opened back in 1974, mental health wasn't even considered a part of the healthcare package. So to come to counseling, it was $2 and an hour's worth of volunteer at your local church. That's how you paid for your mental health. Now, fast forward, we have a DSM book, DSM-5 to be exact, that's over 300 pages of diagnoses that are in the mental health field. So how things have changed in the last 40 years. Unfortunately, insurance has agreed that mental health is a part of your insurance package. They just have not put a value to it as they have chemotherapy or something else. But mental health is covered by insurance. However, it's not a great portion of what is paid. So many people that do have insurance right now really could not afford mental health if we charged them their copay. So we have worked out an agreement with some of the area schools that have students that are in the mental health field, and we bring interns on that have had all of their classes, all of their qualifications, but they're getting their hours before they can sit for their license. So we take that time period where they need their 3,000 hours and we put them on staff, and they are able to help those that can't afford counseling. However, I do want to say this about our place. We do not offer free counseling. Counseling may only cost $5, but it's not free. There is a value to it. And $5 to someone that doesn't have a permanent home address is just as expensive as full cost to someone that is fully employed.
So what will the donor dollars from United Way help you do? What are the types of things specifically you use those funds for?
We use those funds to help all of our clients that can't afford counseling. We use those funds specifically with family counseling and children's counseling. I feel like if we can break that cycle early, and United Way can help us do that, as much as we would like to have adult clients that were full paying, it would be okay if they didn't come back to us as adults. I guess we would be okay with putting ourselves out of business if that could ever happen.
Right.
The state of Michigan is the second hardest state in the country to get your mental health license.
Really?
The amount of hours that you have to put in, the amount of testing you have to take. That's why when we left Samaritan Counseling Center, one of the things that they did for us was help us to establish best practices and have a program together so that we were meeting all HIPAA law and requirement. And then all of these changes started to take place, like electronic medical records and things that were growing, and the Samaritan Center did not grow with that. This is a counselor's office that does a lot of work with children and adolescents, and each counselor personalizes their office to really meet the needs of the type of clients that they see. So this particular counselor has a feelings chart up, and they have squishy balls with different facial feelings that kids can help to express themselves, and even including some chalk, because it's okay at your counseling's office to write on the wall. This is our play therapy room. I know it looks like just a fun playroom for kids, but there's actually very specific toys and things and games in here that can happen with the kids that we can learn about what is going on in their life and maybe help with some of the counseling. We can see children as young as 2 years old, and we actually have a client right now that's 2 that we see in here. But mostly it is your preschool and young learning years that come in here. So this is another example of a counselor's office. This is a counselor's office that provides counseling for adults only, as well as caregivers and those that are being cared for. End-of-life issues are things that he specializes in. So just to give you a feel from the last counselor's office to this counselor's office, every counselor is in charge of decorating their own room. I give them a blank slate, and I can give them a desk, a couple of filing cabinets, and everything else in the room is what reflects them, their personalities, or what maybe is best for the type of clientele that they serve. So each office looks a little bit different. One of the other things that we offer here is outdoor counseling. We own the lot right next to us, and although the weather's not great today to be going out there, we have 3 vignettes outside that meet HIPAA standards, so we can hold outdoor counseling. And one of the areas has toys in it so that the kids can play. We can talk to the adults on one side, let the kids play, or we'll get in and play with the kids. We have a sandbox that the kids can play with, or we have tetherball out there. We also have areas where the kids can do chalk art, hopscotch, all of that. Outdoor counseling is very popular in the spring and summer. Sometimes just being inside of 4 walls and getting outside and having open air, that alone makes the counseling that much more successful. Thank you all for coming and seeing what Centered on Wellness is all about today.
Well, so great to come.
Thank you very much. It was very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, and United Way as always.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought I was going to get a hug.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Welcome to Well of Grace Ministries. I'm Mary Andrews, the Executive Director here. Welcome everyone. Come on through. I'd like to show you our center. So Well of Grace Ministries, we work with adolescent girls and women. We provide therapy groups. We offer 3 different programs. One is called Club H2O, and this is the space that we might use to do a group. We also have 3 other group rooms that we would hold a group in as well. We moved into this space just over a year ago, and we are just feeling blessed because we can provide services to the ladies that really need it in our community. So come on in this way. So this is our purple room, and we really want it to feel like we're welcoming everybody into our living room. We don't want it to feel like a sterile environment when girls or women are coming in to do a therapy group with us. So we provide services, like I said, for adolescent girls and women. So girls 13 to 18 years of age, and that group is called Club H2O. And United Way is a partner, funding partner to Club H2O, and that's really one of the most successful groups that we offer through not only here at our center, but throughout Berrien County. So right now we are in 9 different school systems and adding groups pretty consistently for the last couple of years. So we not only have groups here at our center, but also out in the community. So because of our partnership with United Way, Andrews University was able to take our evaluations from Club H2O, both the initial rating and outcome rating scales, to make sure that we're measuring what we're doing in group appropriately. So this was great news. Even though we as group leaders feel like we're doing a good job, this was really validating for us to have our not only the tool, the evaluation that we use validated, but also some of the stats that they gave us. So after attending a 6-week group, 36% of the girls said they increased in liking themselves. So that's that self-esteem piece. 30% said they're getting along with their family members, and I don't know if you guys know teenagers, but that's unheard of. So there's lots of conflict that happens, especially with family dynamic stuff. So 57% of those girls said, I now have someone I trust to share my problems with. That's huge. So you're thinking nearly 60% of those girls didn't have someone that they really trusted with their problems, and then 35%, close to 35% increased in just overall happiness. So finding joy, using those coping skills that we're giving them, using the boundaries and increasing their self-esteem. So all of those are just great to validate what we're doing in the group setting. So this is a room we might provide an Oasis Group, which is for women over the age of 18. We would work with those women on a multitude of different issues, but since our groups are only 6 weeks long, we kind of tease out their most specific needs that first day of group. So we would sit here together depending on who's in the building at that time. If we have another group, certainly we would go into one of the more private rooms that we have. So follow me this way. So this would be a setting that we would have a group of ladies come in and hold that hour and a half group. Typically that's the time frame that we use. Some groups, if we do more of a kind of a 3-hour, we're focused on maybe it's boundaries that we're working on, we'll do an elongated group for one very intentional, intense therapy session with a group of ladies. So it just depends on the focus, but typically our groups do meet for 6 weeks at a time. Okay, so we're heading into the creative expression room. I think you need a sign. So this is a room that we would use for not only maybe we've done some talk therapy with some of these teens or women in our groups, but we want to do something kind of dig deeper on whatever the topic may be. So I pulled out a few different things that we've done with some of the groups, and typically when we meet with teens, we'll do a mask activity. And so what that activity looks like is we'll explain that we'll ask them to identify what the world sees in them or what they allow the world to see, and then what's really going on the inside. And this is a beautiful way for us to tap into kind of what these struggles are that these ladies are facing. And without them kind of pretty quick, short order of meeting them, we're finding out some pretty difficult things, like I feel invisible, I'm scared and I'm worried, or I'm stressed, I'm crying all the time, I'm fearful. And then, but what I'm showing the world is I'm funny and respectful and loud and quiet. So typically I'm showing the world that I'm pretty happy, but on the inside something else is going on. So we get to tap into some of these things pretty quickly with using more of a creative expression technique.
We started Well of Grace in 2004. Got our 501c3, put together our mission statement, put together what it is we wanted to do, and started raising money. And then in 2007, we actually purchased a home in Stevensville and started a residential treatment program where we had 24-hour, 7-day-a-week staff. So for 2 years then, we ran a residential treatment program. And during that time, we served 12 girls. So a variety of issues. Eating disorder was very prevalent. Sexual abuse, physical abuse. We had a couple of girls that aged out of foster care. Last year in 2016, we served 375, and they're all from Berrien County.
So our participants are referred here in various ways through maybe their primary care physician who met with them, who know about Well of Grace and said, hey, do you know about this girls group? And it's free to join group. That's another beauty of Well of Grace. So participants come in, they don't have to pay for our services. We're professionally led, not peer led, which is wonderful. So these are master's level or higher leaders running these groups, and it's just a beautiful gift to the community. So maybe their school counselor has heard about us and they can't get out of school. Maybe academics are just so tough for them, they can't really get out of the school, even though we rotate the schedule so that teens don't miss the same class. Even though we rotate the schedule, maybe they want to come to group here at our center and not get out of any of their classes. Maybe academically it's just too tough for them to do that, if that's an option at their school. The other way would be maybe their counselor has heard about us and said, group is such a cool way to just, create a support system and maybe work on these specific areas a bit more.
We're all on the same page with wanting to provide the services that we provide and wanting to do it for free and not wanting to be a burden to families. But it's been a great journey, and we've had great people. United Way has a ton of resources, and they're very approachable. So even, anytime we've done a presentation or we've written grants, when you're initially looking at something, and I took a grant writing class in graduate school, but even when you're looking at the grant writing process and you're thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to fill all this out? Or what do they mean by this, and this? But to be able to pick up the phone and call and say, okay, could you just explain this to me? Could you just talk to me like I'm 4 years old and explain this to me? And so there's great people to work with. It's not, it's not like Mary and I have it all figured out, but we've just been surrounded by really great people.
I have to go back to accountability, that piece, but certainly the funding as well. We're such a small non-for-profit, but it's such a blessing too. I mean, there's value in the name of United Way in this community. It says, oh wow, you guys are doing good work. It really is a stamp of approval in the community. And so not just the name stamp saying yes, they're doing good work there, but certainly the support, like Leslie mentioned. If I have a question about how can I get my Well of Grace more prominent on the internet, I can call them and they will, and I've asked the question and they are like, let me get back to you on that. And so they'll even help the business part of it. They'll help in any way that they can. And I just love having that. It's a gift. It's truly a gift. Thank you so much for joining us here at Well of Grace, and I hope you enjoyed the tour.